are going to focus on research papers. Okay. Why should we all try to write? You know, many people have this, they do not like to write. They love to, so there are many people I see, they love to teach, they love to do workshops, they love to do administration work, they love to do LICs and all sorts of other duties, but they don't like to do academic writing. Many people think that a lot is being made out of academic writing. It is not needed, this, that. I'll tell you why we should all try to write. Okay. The recording has stopped. There's no reason for that, right? Kajal, ma'am?
Ma'am, you go ahead.
Yeah.
It has been streamed on live on YouTube also.
Okay, no worries. Okay. So, why should all academicians try to write? Write, I wouldn't say just try to write. Why should we try to research? Okay. See, when we research, we always will understand theory more deeply. We will learn everything that has happened around our topic in the past. So we will have to learn theory more deeply. We will have to read a lot about recent and not so recent researches in our topic. We will be able to take a first-hand empirical evidence to class. So suppose I am teaching mergers and acquisitions, and I have written a case study on merger, some particular acquisition. Will I not have a better insight to that topic than otherwise? Suppose I have researched, okay, how do mergers and acquisitions impact stock prices? If I have written a paper on that, I have actually worked with real life company data. Will I not be more assertive, more aggressive, more confident about what I know in class, rather than if I'm reading somebody else's work and trying to convince students कि ऐसा हो सकता है, right? So when you've done your own research, you will have much more conviction as a teacher. Believe me, it's true. You will experience it as you grow more and more as a researcher. So many times we feel a big disconnect between teaching and researching. हमें लगता है कि ये सब कहाँ काम आने वाला है हमारे क्लासरूम में. But it will come intuitively. You will not realize it when you are just a researcher or you're just a teacher. When you will combine both these things, and that your mind will do automatically. You don't have to make any effort to do it. You've done a research, you take it to class and you tell your students, this is what I did, this is what I found, what do you think about it? Let's have a discussion on it. It will build a whole new paradigm to your session. Then it will bring a whole new deepened sense of engagement in your class, which you will never experience by teaching what somebody else has written. Okay, so it will give you as a young teacher much more confidence in your class, right? It will definitely improve your subject knowledge. Also, you will be able to keep abreast with latest developments in the subject, because you will read what all has happened till your point of research. And another thing is you will be able to keep update with latest statistical tools. Now, this has become very important these days for all types of researches. Now we have softwares, we have data analysis packages. We even have packages for qualitative data analysis. So when we do nowadays, good journals, they accept conceptual papers also, but they expect you to have a rigorous empirical evidence. Okay, they require a certain amount of rigor that you have put into your paper. And that rigor is not only with respect to your literature review or, reading about your topic, but it has also to do with what statistical techniques you have used to kind of come to your conclusion. Okay, so as computing power keeps on increasing, so many statistical tests which were impossible to do previously manually are now possible with the click of your fingers. So journals expect you to put all that in your paper. Okay. Now, what is good research? Good research is your purpose should be clearly defined. See, कई बार हमें लगता है कि क्या रिसर्च करें हम, what should we research? I will tell you what you should research. I recently heard a very good talk by a professor of IIM Ahmedabad. And he said that, see, nobody is interested in reading about, the same thing that somebody has done in America, you are replicating it in India. People are not really interested. Something has happened in Maharashtra, some research, you're replicating it in Gujarat. I mean, there's a limited scope to these kind of studies. Normally हम लोग ऐसा ही करने की कोशिश करते हैं कि हमें कुछ करना है, उसको जस्टिफाई हम ऐसे करेंगे, किसी और ने किया नहीं है, ये हमारे स्टेट में नहीं हुआ है, या इंडिया में नहीं हुआ है, या ये पर्टिकुलर इंडस्ट्री में नहीं हुआ है. This study was done for the steel industry. No such study has been found for the steel industry, so I want to do it for the steel industry. Now, these are all justifications which are not very strong. Okay, so what should be your purpose? What good journals are interested in are identify problems around you in your environment, in your business environment, in your social environment, and you work upon that problem. You try to solve that problem, or you try to give a solution to that problem, or you base your research around that problem. People are interested. People all around the world are interested. Okay. So if you pick up topics like that, then the international journals are really interested in your work. So your purpose of research should have the most substantive standing. Many times, like I talked about statistical packages, I've seen many researchers, they just get waylaid by the sophistication of statistics. So I was attending a Pan IIM conference in Delhi, and somebody from Delhi University, if I'm not mistaken, presented a paper saying that GDP impacts stock market. And he had used an extensive mathematical model to prove that. Okay, now, number one, the model was very good. It was very well appreciated. Everybody was in awe कि ये क्या लाया, कुछ advanced maths लेके आया है जो अभी तक किसी ने सुना नहीं है management में तो. But the point of what was the purpose of the research? Every person in this universe knows that GDP impacts stock market. What's the new thing that you did? Except that, oh, you proved it with, like you didn't hold your ear like this, you held it like that. Okay, so many a times we get very carried away by the research methodology. It's great to use a good research methodology, but the most important thing in your research paper should be the problem. So problem identification में सबसे ज़्यादा time लगाइए. Identify a unique problem. Identify something that nobody has ever done, and your paper is sure to be accepted. But number one, that identification process will take effort. You will have to read a lot to identify what your problem, or you will have to identify a problem which nobody has worked on. Something as mundane as, why do you think Swachh Bharat has kind of failed in India? What are the inhibitor factors to Swachh Bharat in India? Something like that. Everybody is going to be interested because such a huge campaign, government has spent thousands of crores behind it, but still we don't see India as the spick and span clean country that we want it to be seen as. What's the problem? Identify something like that and you work around that. No matter what method of regression you use, it will be accepted somewhere, provided no one else has done it. I'm just giving you something out of my head. Okay, so give most importance to the purpose, your research question. Then you decide the process of research. How are you going to answer your question? Okay. Your research design should be thoroughly planned. Okay. Your high ethical standards should be applied. Now, since this workshop is also on ethical standards, what are high ethical standards? We don't want plagiarism. Now, plagiarism means what? Somebody else's idea, which you have just kind of window dressed and put it as your idea. That is what we don't want. Plagiarism, India mein how people understand plagiarism is still very, very nascent. That is, we just maybe paraphrase something that someone else has said, and we think that, oh, we have gotten rid of plagiarism. In fact, I know people who find very innovative and creative ways of avoiding plagiarism. I don't want to get into the details of that, but very simply, suppose ये slide मैंने बनाई है, okay, purpose should be clearly defined. Now, if you want to copy this slide and say that it is not plagiarized, आप purpose के बीच में एक I लगा दीजिए और उसको whitener से white कर दीजिए. White आपका कंप्यूटर में जो white क्या कहते हैं उसको, highlighting. There is no way you will be able to find plagiarism in this sentence. Okay, because the spellings are only wrong. There are so many people who do that. They get away with it. That is not the point. The point is that you stick to your ethics. See, what is ethics? Ethics is something that you do not cheat even when no one is looking. Okay, so you don't find innovative ways to cheat. Rather, you don't cheat at all. So bring in originality to your paper. It will be a lot more fun, to write the paper. So we use plagiarism softwares. Plagiarism, again, is not only paraphrasing. Plagiarism is originality of idea also should be there. Okay. Your limitations of the study should be frankly revealed. Your analysis should be adequate for the decision maker's need, and your findings should be presented unambiguously. Unambiguously means very straightforward. There's no flowery language is required, etc. Conclusion should be justified, and in this whole paper, the experience of you as a researcher, what you experienced, what you found, should be clearly reflected. That is the purpose of a good research. That is when you say, okay, yes, this was good research. Okay. So like I told you, that writing a research or an academic paper is a very conservative way of writing. And so we follow something called the scientific method. People from pure science are very conversant with this. You identify the problem, you prepare a hypothesis, then you find sources of data from where you will get information about your problem. You break down the problem into small pieces. Then you try to answer each of the small piece of your problem. You collect more data. You run empirical tests to kind of prove or disprove your hypothesis. Then you write your findings, and then you conclude or give recommendations. So that is, the scientific method is all about correct information. Okay, real-time information. So direct observation of phenomena. You need to actually observe clearly defined variables, methods and procedures. You have to identify your variable. What is your independent variable? What is your dependent variable? So what is independent variable? The variable which is affecting other variables, which is not affected by anything in your research as far as the scope of your study is concerned. Okay. What is dependent variable? The variable which is affected by the independent variable. Okay, so you have to identify your variables. You have to build an empirically testable hypothesis. You should have the ability to rule out rival hypotheses. Your analysis should be statistical rather than linguistic justifications of conclusions. And the scientific method will have a self-correcting process. So suppose you don't get the answer, that means you again go back to step 1. Okay. How would you know that your research is rare or contemporary, or if you're in the right direction? If you encounter curiosity, doubt, barrier, suspicion, obstacle, okay, you struggle to state the problem, you ask questions, you contemplate existing knowledge, gather facts, move from emotional to an intellectual confrontation of the problem. Okay, so I am very irritated by the fact that India is not clean. Okay, and then I kind of try to find out why is not India clean. Okay, why has the Swachh Bharat campaign failed or not been as successful as it should have been? Or why do we as Indians have to be kept on reminded all the time that no, you can not throw trash on the roads, you cannot let your animals loose on the road, you cannot urinate in public. Why are these problems there in India? So you go to the root and then you divide your question into smaller questions. You try to answer all the smaller questions, and then you come to your main question. So you are ready to propose a hypothesis, explanation, facts, etc. You deduce outcomes or consequences of the hypothesis, attempt to discover what happens if the results are in opposite direction of that predicted, or if the results support the expectations. Okay, so I'll give you the same example. I was asking somebody from USA that, why do you think India is not a clean country? He said, because I think there is scarcity of water. Now, this is a hypothesis. India is not a clean country because there is scarcity of water. Is it true? Do we have scarcity of water in India? Well, we are known as the land of the Sapta Sindhu. Where is the scarcity of water? Everybody came to India because we had plenty of water and plenty of food and everything, plenty of sunlight. So, was it a question of water? Or rather, was it a question of making sure that water reaches every household? So was it a question of water scarcity, or was it a question of engineering? Was it an engineering problem that piped water could not reach every household? But however, even having said that, houses in India are very clean. The roads which are dirty, there is a question of water, enough rainfall. It is not the question of water, it is the question of the people's habits. So why are our habits? So when you build a hypothesis, you can say, oh, India is a dirty country because there is scarcity of water. When you will actually do the research, you will find that your hypothesis is completely wrong. There is no scarcity of water in the country. And so it will be a self-correcting process. So you'll say, oh, then what is the problem? So you again go back to your question and you try to identify, you collect more data. So when you get a wrong, your hypothesis is disproven, what will you have to do? You will have to collect more data to come to your answer. Okay. Formulate several rival hypotheses, devise and conduct some crucial empirical test with various possible outcomes. You draw a conclusion based on the acceptance or rejection of the hypothesis. You feed information back into the original problem. You modify it and give strength of evidence. Okay. So I'm going this part, I'm going very fast, because I want to come to that part where we actually look at what are the components of a paper, how do we send it to a journal, so and so. But before that, identifying your research problem is very important. The research process is very important. So as I told you that, what are we trying to do as academicians? We are trying to add something more to the body of existing knowledge, right? So we try to build some theory, or we try to add to an existing theory. So let us say we have two researchers, A and B. A wants to know what caused the COVID pandemic. B wants to know if organizational structure influences leadership style. So A and B are two different researchers researching in different areas. What do they both want? They both want a better understanding of the environment. What caused the COVID? Can we take care of it in the future? What should we do so that it doesn't come back? Or what should we do to avoid any such other future pandemics? So what went wrong in the environment? Why did this virus catch so much strength? Okay, so he is trying to understand the environment better. Wants to know, second, B wants to know if organizational structure influences leadership style. Right? Does it influence leadership style? If there is a centralized structure versus a decentralized structure, would the leader be different? Okay. Now, why do both of these people want to answer these questions? Very simple. See, the basic reason why we want to do research is predicting the future. Mankind has grappled with this for centuries and thousands of years. How do we predict ke kal kya hone wala hai? Only based on past data can we get some semblance of what might happen in future. Okay, so every research ultimately tries, every theory ultimately tries to predict. Okay, so we want to better predict behavior. We want to better predict environment. We want to better predict the behavior of what? Our variables in future. Both will expect a scientific outcome with a specific behavior. Okay. Now, understanding and predicting are the two purposes of any theory. Take any theory. You want to understand a phenomena better. You want to predict how these variables might behave in the future. The first researcher A allows for understanding relationships between variables. Example, a doctor may believe that older patients are more likely to get severe COVID symptoms as compared to younger patients. Now, this is what the doctor believes. Okay, but this is not 100%. We don't know whether this is true. So to give more strength to his belief, he will have to research. So what will he have to do? He will have to collect data of so many old people, and he'll have to collect data of so many young people. Both of these groups should have gotten COVID. And then what will he find? He will find how severe the COVID symptoms were. So how many old people were hospitalized? How many young people were hospitalized? Is there any difference between these, between the mean of young people who were hospitalized and old people who were hospitalized? If he finds that no, there is no difference in the mean, that means no, his belief is wrong. But if he finds that yes, older people had more severe symptoms, then his belief is correct. But sometimes it could also be the opposite. He might find that, oh, young people had worse symptoms of COVID than old people. Okay, so your belief leads you to research. Research might actually prove that your belief is true, or it might disprove your belief, or sometimes it may say, oh, these two things have no interrelation with each other. Okay. If the theory is verified, then it would help the researcher to predict the type of treatment to be administered based on the age of the patient. So suppose he finds that, yes, truly, age is an important criteria as far as COVID symptoms are concerned. He will give treatment according to age. Theories provide explanation as to why variables behave in a particular way. So understanding helps in predicting. Okay. How do you define a problem? In real life, there is a dilemma. Okay. There is a dilemma. See, my dilemma is, coming back to the problem that I have been talking about. My dilemma is, oh, should I use the toilet in the train or not? That's where the problem starts. You know, if you actually think about it, there are so many problems in your life which can actually be transferred, or which can actually be emanating from a social problem which you can solve. So my dilemma starts there. My question is, why are these toilets dirty always? And so my research question comes, oh, why is India not a clean place? And then I'll say, oh, what do we mean by clean, first of all? So then we draw a comparison that, okay, you compare it with Singapore, or you compare it with the US. And then you say, oh, compared to all of this, we are not clean. And then we find the investigative question that, okay, what should we do to make India clean? Okay, so your dilemma, you know, sometimes your problems in life can help you solve a social problem, or can help you solve a business problem for that matter. Now, levels of reality. So basically in academics, what we do, we go from real to abstract. Okay. So there are basically two levels, the abstract level and the empirical level. Empirical level is a level of data where you actually collect data from the real world, and then you find some meaning from the data, and then you say, हाँ, जब भी ऐसा होता है तब ऐसा होता है, then you make it abstract into a theory. Okay, so we will just look at one example to that. So empirical level is this level where you see observation, when you observe objects and events, that is the reality. And this reality you convert into concept. So something as simple as, you know, there is a market, and it is a market for, let us say, wheat. Very simple example, wheat. Now, a lot of people come to buy wheat every day to that market. The farmer increases the price of the wheat, less people come to the market. Okay. When farmer decreases the price of the wheat, more people go to the market to purchase it. Now, this is what empirical, this is what truly observed, reality, observed in person, in fact. Okay. Now you go to the rice market, you see the same thing happening. Okay, then you go to the vegetable market. Again, you say price of vegetable increases, less people buy vegetables. Price of vegetable decreases, more people buy vegetables. Now you see that in 3 different markets. Then you go to the steel market. You see the same thing. When price of steel increases, construction industry decreases, or people buy less steel, people buy less number of cars. Overall, the demand for steel decreases when price of steel increases. You see it in steel. You see it in transportation. You see it in so many sectors. And finally, you compile all of that data and you create a concept which says, whenever prices increase, demand for the product decreases. So you have conceptualized reality. Are you getting it? So this is the reason why academicians should do research. And what you observe in reality, you can generalize it, you can apply it to so many things, then it becomes a concept. Okay. So that is what we are trying to do as an academician. We are trying to empirical evidence को हम concept में बदलने की कोशिश करते हैं. From reality, we try to go to the abstract. Okay. So what is a reality? Reality is that this is banana. Okay. What is banana? It is a fruit. What is a fruit? It is a type of a vegetation. You try to make it more and more abstract. So what is vegetation? Okay. It is something which grows from the ground. Okay. It is a part of the plant species and so and so. You make it more and more abstract. Theory building, it is a process of increasing the abstraction. So I think we have understood this. So observations build concepts, concepts say propositions, propositions say theory. So what are propositions? Basically what you propose, your hypothesis, your research question you convert to a hypothesis. So a hypothesis is a proposition that is empirically testable. It is an empirical statement concerned with the relationship amongst your variables. A variable is anything that may assume different numerical values. So what is a proposition at an abstract level and hypothesis at an empirical level? So your hypothesis is at an empirical level, whereas your proposition is at an abstract level. Okay, so let us look at this. There is a salesperson who makes, every day he makes 4 sales calls. And because of that, he gets bonus for sales volume. So this is that if he wants a bonus for sales volume, he should make 4 sales calls a day. Okay. So this is reinforcement. कि अच्छा वो ज्यादा सेल करेगा तो उसको ज्यादा बोनस मिलेगा is a reinforcement. Reinforcement becomes a habit. So suppose my theory is that if I reinforce good behavior with a reward, it will become a habit. Something like this is a model. Okay, so if you reinforcement good performance, the habit, it becomes a habit with the employee and his overall level of performance increases. Okay, so suppose I tell my students that every time you don't miss even one lecture in the week, I'll give you 1 chocolate. Eventually what happens is I keep on giving him chocolates, but coming to classes regularly becomes a habit with him because of that reinforcement of the chocolate. So then eventually, even if I don't give him the chocolate, he will come to class. Okay, so that is the theory that, so this is an example. Okay, it's not that this is the example that reinforcement leads to habit and habit leads to, this is a model built. This is empirical. This is one example, sales call and bonus, more sales, more bonus, more classes, more chocolates. That way it can be applied to a lot of things. Okay. So something like, how do you select people for a job? Based on performance, and based on that you decide what should be the elements of job performance. So let us say, what are the predictors of selected? What do we look for? Look at this green box. What do we look for as elements of job performance. So he should be doing more work, he should be doing quality work, he should be able to, mix with other people, he should be present at work, the length of his service, how many years he's willing to spend at a particular company, and flexibility. Is he ready to change the type of work given to him? Okay. Then selection criteria. This leads to selection criteria. That is this, or suppose he has all of this, then he will develop ability, motivation, intelligence, conscientiousness, etc. And this become the predictor. So this is a model. What I'm trying to tell you is from empirical to abstract. Okay, we're not going to go too much into this. Look at the scientific method. We have discussed this. Okay, we finally start with knowledge and reach design of research. We research, we create a design that how are we going to research. Once we make the design, we will collect data, we will analyze and evaluate the data, and we will provide explanation for the problem. Okay, so observation, pattern, hypothesis, theory. Okay, now coming to the important part, that is what are the elements of a research paper. Okay. At this point, if you have some questions, we can just take like 2-3 minutes for question answers. Okay, so moving forward, what are the elements of a research paper? I'm sure by now all of you know that what are the elements of a research paper. Every paper should have a title page. The title page should contain the title, the name of the authors, the affiliation of the authors, and some additional information that the author wants to give. It should also contain the name of the corresponding author and any acknowledgements of that the author wants to make should come on the title page. Now, why should a title page be separate from the rest of your paper? Because whenever you send your paper for peer review, for publication to a journal, they will put it through a peer review process where they don't want your reviewers to know your names. That is why the body or the main manuscript of the paper will be different from the title page. You will always have to insert your title page separate from the other part of your manuscript. Okay, so you have a title page, you have an abstract, introduction, which will also include the review of literature, measures and methods, results, discussion, and conclusion. So let us look at all of these. So title page should give a clear idea of what the study is about, should give the names of the authors, affiliation, note of the author, and details about correspondence regarding the article. So suppose there are 4 authors who have written the paper. Only one of them will correspond with the reviewers. Not all 4 can correspond. Okay, so whenever you send your paper, you will always have to mention who is the corresponding author. A corresponding author means the author who will keep a track of the paper. Okay, so if there are any comments from the reviewers, they will be sent to the corresponding author. And in most cases, the corresponding author kind of resolves those comments from the reviewers. Okay. Title. Now, the title of the article is very important. Usually journals say that title should not be more than 12 to 16 words. Okay. Title should be unambiguous. That is, suppose I just give, I've written a case study and I just say a knight in shining armor. Okay. People are not going to understand what this case is about. Okay. But suppose I say something like the takeover of company A by company B, a knight in shining armor. Okay, then it makes sense. Okay, so your title should be what exactly your research wants to do. Should be very, very focused. It should be small. and it should, in 1 minute, the reader should understand what you are trying to do. Okay, so abstract. Tell me, when do we write abstracts? In the beginning of the paper or in the end of the paper? My question is, I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, madam.
Yeah, correct. So, madam has replied, we have to write the abstract at after you write the paper, always. Many a times what conferences want, they want that, okay, they want that you send your abstract first, right? So many of us will just write the abstract, send it, and then if they accept the abstract, we will start writing the paper. That's not the way to go about it. You write the paper and then you create the abstract. Okay, so it is a short summary of the contents of the paper. It is an overview of the paper as it contains small bits of the article. After the first draft of paper is done, you should write the abstract when your results are in your hand. Okay. Somebody has asked me a question about research gap. I will come to that shortly. Now your paper should start with an introduction, right? So introduction contains the primary information to understand the paper. It gives the idea of the main topic. In the first paragraph, no, you should make it very explicitly clear what you are trying to do. Don't make the reviewer read the whole paper for him to be able to understand कि आप करना क्या चाहते हो. You have to explain the key terms. Historical information has to be given in brief. There should be a citation of other studies. That is, in a research paper, the review of literature should be as a part of introduction. Okay. Now you have to cite other studies. Okay. Citing other studies means there are so many other papers that you have to read to even write one line in your paper. So you have to say, okay, in the past, there have been many studies which have found that GDP growth rate influences stock markets. Now you cannot just write this sentence like this. You have to say, okay, which studies? Okay, studies by X, Y, Z. So you have to cite it in the paper. So there is a way to cite it. You have to use some or the other citation management software, like you can use Mendeley or you can use Zotero, or Word also has an inbuilt function. There are many online softwares also available, but my recommendation is that you either use Mendeley or Zotero. All of you should know how to use those softwares. It will make your life very, very easy. Okay. You have to be able to say in the introduction how your study is rare. This is a very important question which everybody will keep on asking. How is your study rare? Please explain it. Rare means ऐसा क्या नया है आपके स्टडी में जो किसी और ने नहीं किया है. शायद अभी, see, it would be ideal if your study is really rare. Okay, but let's be real. We are from social sciences. It's not as if some discovery that we make is going to change the trajectory of the universe. ऐसा रिसर्च प्योर साइंसेस वाले ज्यादा करते हैं, हमारा कोई स्कोप है नहीं. तो कई बार हम जो भी रिसर्च करते हैं वो इतना नया नहीं है, इतना रेयर नहीं है. बट एज एन एकेडमिक राइटर यू शुड बी एबल टू क्रिएट सम रेयरिटी around your research. Okay, so there has to be some fresh element which you can say कि हाँ ये मेरे research की rarity. Okay. How is it relevant to discussion? That ये जो आपका research है rare है, वो discussion में कैसे relevant है? How will it add to the existing literature? Okay, so this, your introduction should contain all of this. Now, as I told you, your introduction should have another main part, which is review of literature. When you are writing a research thesis or a dissertation or a project, you will make a whole new chapter called reviewing literature, review of literature. But in a research paper, we usually don't do that. Review of literature continues in all the different parts of the paper, but mainly your review of literature will be along with your introduction, where at the end of the introduction, you are able to identify your research gap that, okay, I have read these papers, and I have found that, okay, these studies are done in Argentina and Mexico and here and there. And I have also found that all these studies have identified variable X, Y, Z affecting variable W, but none of these studies have found anything regarding variable A also, which affects variable W. And my study is all about identifying the relationship between variable A and variable W. Okay, so something like that is what you need to be able to bring out after you have reviewed all the literature. Okay, so now what review of literature has a twofold purpose. Now, one, to justify the focus of your study and to provide a rationale for your methodological approach. Okay, the rationale for your methodological approach means why have you used regression to find the relationship between these two, and why have you not used something else, or why have you used chi-square to show the association between X and Y, and why did you not do logistic regression? Okay, so review of literature will help you to identify कि अच्छा ये हम क्यों कर सकते हैं, ये हम क्यों नहीं कर सकते हैं. So you can say paper written by X, Y, Z have all used this methodology, and I also feel that to study the relationship between variable X and Y, this methodology is appropriate. So basically, when you do review of literature, it will help you to rationalize, it will help you to substantiate what you have done. कई बार हम ऐसा सोचते हैं. I came across a PhD student. She was giving her open defense viva, and she said, I did this study because nobody else had ever done it. Okay. So the first question which I asked her is, did you ever think why nobody did it so far in the last 100 years? Nobody did this study. Do you think why there could be a reason that nobody did it? Okay. So the reason was that because the relationship was completely wrong. So theoretically, you could not do a study like that. That is why nobody has done it. Okay, so do not take that as something which strengthens your study. If nobody has done a study like you, okay, and you think, oh, किसी ने ऐसा सोचा ही नहीं, then in most probability you are wrong, because hundreds of people might have thought of it, but that relationship is spurious. I'll give you one example. There was a research done in Europe. Okay, in whichever city there are many more number of doctors, there were more number of deaths. Okay, so the conclusion of this research was that if there are more doctors, then more people die. Do you think this relationship, do you think this could be true? How can it be? Because doctors actually cure patients of illnesses, right? Okay. Now, you come to the question, why are there more doctors in this city? Okay. The answer is that because the city has a high population. So obviously, if out of a population of whatever, 3% are doctors, then if this city has a population of 10 lakhs and 3% are doctors, that means there will be 3,000 doctors. Okay. Sorry, 30,000 doctors. Now, vis-a-vis another city which has a population of 1 lakh, will have 3,000 doctors. And there will be lesser deaths because the population is less. And in the bigger city, there will be more deaths because the population is more. So now tell me, are doctors causing the death? No. The population, because there's more population, there are more number of deaths. Because there's more population, there are more number of doctors. There is no relationship between number of doctors and number of deaths. So you might say, oh, ऐसा study किसी ने किया ही नहीं है, पर ये study आप कर ही नहीं सकते हो because your variables are not related. Okay, so you have to be very wary of such ideas that you might get. You should always try to find कि ये idea जो मुझे आया है वो actually हकीकत में theoretically possible है कि नहीं. Okay. So reviewing literature will help you solve that problem, whether your idea is plausible or not plausible. Now synthesis, it helps addressing inconsistencies or deficiencies in the existing research. It shed lights on contradictions. It helps. Okay, what is review of literature is not a summary of individual studies. Okay, many times we say, okay, in 1959, so and so found in so and so study that this happened this. Then in 1969, so and so found this relationship between X and Y. Then 1979, so and so. ऐसे नहीं होता है review of literature. So first you will identify all the studies which are related to your study. You will summarize them that, okay, X in 1950, Y in 1955, and Z in 1956. They all worked around this same problem and they found there is this relationship between X and Y. Then you go on to, okay, then in 1970, there was a new type of research which was done by A, B, and C, and which was corroborated by P, Q, and R, saying that this is the relationship between variables X, Y, and Z. Okay, and so your review of literature is basically a summary of all the knowledge which is there on that topic up till now. Okay, and it is a critical analysis. It helps you to explore strengths and weaknesses of the recent studies in the field. Now you will say, acha, from where should I start my review of literature? Honestly speaking, it depends on your topic. Your topic is very Ghisapita mundane, you have to start from the beginning and bring it to right now. If your topic is fairly new, you can have less review recent studies and bring it to the fore. Suppose you are studying on something like Kajal Madam said, IoT. Okay, IoT is a fairly recent phenomenon. How much review are you going to do? But maybe your idea is pretty new, so you don't need to kind of substantiate the newness of it with review. You have to substantiate the newness of your idea with application. But if your idea is something old, then you need to bring in more and more review to say, ये हुआ है, पर फिर भी ये बाकी है, तो मैं ये करने वाला हूँ या करने वाला हूँ. Okay, so that is how you will look at review. Okay, what are the steps in writing a review? You search for relevant literature, you evaluate the sources, you identify themes, debates, gaps, you outline the structure, and then you write the review. Right. Now coming to the research question. So once you've done your review of literature, you will be able to identify your research question. That, okay, I have studied all of these papers which are relevant to my paper, but this is the gap that I have found. And based on this gap, now I'm going to formulate my research problem. So you come to your research question. So let us say one example of a research question is, should a retail chain offer shopping via internet? Okay. So first identify the keywords. What are the keywords here? Online, shopping, internet, e-commerce, digital media. Okay. Retail chain, sellers, marketers, marketing, digital marketing, millennials, Generation Z, Generation Y, consumers. Why are we identifying these keywords? Because when you start to find literature around this, or when you want to find research papers around your topic, you will use all of these words to get the relevant research papers around your topic. Okay. Then you start searching relevant sources. You use your keywords, start your search. What are your sources? Your university's library catalog, Google Scholar, of course, JSTOR, EBSCO, Project Muse. This is for humanities and social sciences. Now the problem here is your university needs to subscribe to this. In India, we have InflibNet, which is like a huge repository of research papers from very good and reputed journals from around the world. Okay, so every university should have, in Bombay University, of course, has it. Then for medical sciences, life and biomedicine, Medline. For economics, you have EconLit. You have Inspect for physics, engineering, and computer science. What do we do? How do we identify? How am I to read 100 papers to write one research paper? Not really, but you should read at least 100 abstracts. Find relevant research papers. Find new recent studies. Recent studies will help you कि अच्छा क्या बाकी है इसमें. Okay. But you know, again, I'll quote that IIM professor. He said, from where will you find your research problem? So many people said, oh, I will look at the conclusion and limitations of all the review papers that I am studying, and whatever are those, you know, limitations of the study, my research question will come from there. Now he said very matter of fact, he said, if that guy knows the limitation of your paper, most likely he is already working on that limitation and writing a new paper on that limitation which he had in this previous paper. Okay, so if you are trying to do that, in all probability someone else has already written a paper on that. Okay, so he said, do not try to find the problem or the gap from other research papers. Try to find the problem from your environment, from the real world. And I really agreed this is something which really appealed to me till now. Till a few months ago, even I used to do this. I would review hundreds of papers and say, acha kya nahi hua hai, dekhte hain kya. The idea is to find the problem and then try to find the literature around that problem. Okay, then definitely you will have a new topic. You read the abstract, see if the article is relevant, go to the references, find other relevant papers. You know, references of a relevant article is the source from where you can get other relevant articles. Take note for recurring citations. Recurring means, if suppose you identified 3 papers and all of them have similar citations, means they've taken references from same author, then you go to that paper from which they have all put their references. Okay. Sources. Where should your source of information be? You all know that there are 2 main sources, primary and secondary. Your sources of information should be credible. That is, if you take information from Wikipedia, it's not credible. Okay, you cannot use that information in a research paper. Most likely there should be landmark researches. Okay, many times we take information from blogs. Blogs are just opinions of people. Okay, so unless the bloggist is a very well-renowned individual or entity, do not take you know, information from such sources. Mostly you refer to published research in your field. You look at past major theories. In humanities, you will usually need a long historical perspective. So start the writing process as you read. Keep on inserting citations for whatever you write. And it is helpful to make an annotated bibliography. So what is an annotated bibliography? Like this. Let us say I've read the abstract of this paper. I felt that no, this paper is, or maybe this book is useful for my paper. So I will say, okay, who's the author? Kenny A. When was it written? 2010. What is the name of the book? A New History of Western Philosophy. Who is the publisher? Oxford University Press. And I will write in brief what this book is talking about. Okay. And then, no, don't look at this source Clawfield. This is what I have just taken this annotated bibliography example from somewhere on the internet. So I have put the source. Okay, so this is the way you will create the bibliography, and then you will find similar such sources and you will combine them into one paragraph when you are writing your review of literature. Okay. Select and evaluate. You will not be able to read everything available on the topic. Select articles that are most relevant. For each publication, ask yourself what question or problem is the author addressing, what are the key concepts and how will they be defined, What are the key theories, models, and methods? Does the research use established frameworks or takes an innovative approach? What are the results and conclusion of the study? ये सब आप कब किसको पूछ रहे हो? आप जो पेपर्स पढ़ रहे हो उसमें आप ये सारे क्वेश्चंस पूछ रहे हो. Okay, does the publication contribute to your understanding of the topic? What are its key insights and arguments? You know, I'm going to give you one rule of thumb. Suppose you are selecting a particular journal or a publication. Let us say Sage ki koi journal aapne select ki that this is where I want to send my paper. You should cite a few papers from the previous issues of that journal. That is one way to get your paper accepted. Okay, because it shows the publication that, oh, this guy has read papers from our previous publications. Okay, because what is a publication interested in? A publication is interested in increasing its reading, its readership. Okay, so you are also kind of patting their back and saying, listen, we read papers from your own journal. Your own journal has published this. And so we are also writing something related to what you've published. That kind of substantiates your research. So always do that. I have learned it. When I write papers, I send, then I get reviewers comment saying, oh, I think you should cite this paper from so and so. So in all probability, that paper is from the same journal, previous issues. Many a times reviewers will tell you to cite so and so papers because it is their paper. So many times it also helps you to find who is reviewing your paper. However, that is not, doesn't make any difference, but still they will ask you to cite their paper when they are reviewing your paper. So citation becomes quite important when you're selecting which papers to include in the review, which how you will include. Suppose you are sending a paper to an MDPI journal, you should include some papers from that journal. Okay, identify the themes, debates, and gaps. As somebody was saying, you look at the trends and patterns. What are the themes? Which different questions recur in the literature? What are the debates, conflicts, contradictions? Where do the sources disagree? Many a times you will find such questions where 10 people are saying X and 20 people are saying the opposite of X. Okay, so those are good questions which can be, which you can work upon. What are the pivotal publications? Are there any influential studies that change the direction of the field, and so on? Gaps. What is missing from the literature? Are there any weaknesses that need to be addressed? Outline the review structure. Now, this is very important. See, the review can be chronological. It has to be chronological, means according to time. So you cite the most earlier papers first, and then you come to the recent ones. Thematic. Okay, so let us say there is a paper that you are writing where there are 3 variables, X, Y, and Z. So you write some reviews about relationship between X and Y. There will be some papers on the relationship between X and Z. There will be some papers on the relationship between Y and Z. So these are the 3 themes, and you will incorporate all of these in your review. It has to be methodological because it should be from different disciplines, if sources are from different disciplines. And it could be theoretical, which basically is the foundation of the theoretical concepts. You can combine the various approaches in your review. Now, writing the review. Again, review should have the introduction, which clearly establishes the focus and purpose of the literature review. Okay, so you're saying in the beginning only that we are trying to find the relationship between variable X and Y, and this review is about all the recent and old literature on understanding the variables X and Y and finding the various relationships over the years that people have been able to establish between X and Y. And then you go to the main body, that is, you summarize and synthesize, you give an overview of the main points, combine them into a coherent whole. You analyze and interpret, you critically evaluate, you write in structured paragraphs. It's very important that you write your review of literature in structured paragraphs. In the end of the review, you will talk about the gaps and you will summarize the text. Okay. I'm not getting into this. Okay. So for problem definition, I think we have discussed the problem definition in detail. Your research question, research objectives, your problem will lead to the research question, will lead to the research objectives. Okay, this is the exploratory study where you will first do you will explore the variables which are impacting your dependent variable. Okay, कौन से independent variables here which will impact, let us say, salary of an individual, expectations about salary. What will impact? Will gender impact? Will age impact? Will marital status impact? Will qualification impact? So we don't know. So first we need to explore that. What are the factors which could impact the variable? And then we identify those factors, and then we take it to the confirmatory study. Okay. So we come to the research design, which is like the master plan or framework for action where you specify methods and procedures. Okay. So what are the basic questions in a basic research design? What type of questions need answering? Are descriptive or causal findings required? What is the data source? Are objective answers available by asking people? Should we do a primary study? How quickly is information needed? How should survey questions be worded? How should experimental manipulations be done? Then you select a sample. Okay. Do we need a probability sampling? Do we need non-probability sampling? Always random sampling is better. But many a times due to our limitations as a researcher, due to our limitations of space, time, money, we cannot do random sampling. So we usually use, in social sciences, we use non-random sampling. So many a times people don't understand the difference between random and non-random sampling. People think that, oh, I collected information from random people, so it is random sampling. No, random sampling is not that. Random sampling is when every element, every unit in the population has an equal chance of being selected in your study. That is random sampling. So suppose you are trying to study the average age or average height of people in Ulhasnagar. Okay, and you select people randomly based on availability. That is not random sampling. Okay, you make let us say you make a chit of all the people residing in with one name per chit, all the people residing in Ulhasnagar, and randomly you pick out 500 chits from that sample, with each chit having an equal probability of being picked out. Then you picked out a random sample. Getting it? Otherwise, whatever you do is non-random sampling. Mostly it will be convenience sampling, or it could be snowball sampling. Let us say that I select you give me the reference of your auntie, she gives me the reference of her husband, and so on. So that is what is called snowball sampling. Okay. You will decide whether we need a national sample or we need a local sample. What is the size of the sample that is needed? How will sample units be selected? So selecting a sample, how large, there are certain formulas which you should use whenever you all are writing papers. I got this question from a very reputed Springer journal, said, oh, how did you select 272 samples? And I was like, oh, even I don't know why I selected them. I just found that those were the questionnaires which were valid. That wasn't an acceptable answer. I had to give them a justification using a formula saying that because my population size is unknown and I have a large sample, I have a large population and I selected them in this manner. And so this particular formula helps me to justify that this sample is correct. There will be many people who will tell you, oh, if you select 10% of the population is fine. That is fine if you know your exact population. If you don't know your population, you cannot use that formula. So if any of your writing papers and you're finding a difficulty with respect to sample size, you can get in touch with me. Again, I can take a 1 hour lecture on how to select samples. So let's not get into too much detail, but it's not something that you can just select on your own whim. Okay, right. I think we are at 3 o'clock, Kajal ma'am. How long do I have?
Madam, you can complete at your will. I suppose all the participants also want to learn more and more from you. So,
okay, sure. Okay, fine. Now, research, when you come to the methodology, that is many a times you call it, in a research paper, you will not name that section as research methodology. Many good journals want you to write it as measures and methods. Okay, so in this, you will check the reliability and validity of what your questionnaire, your instrument for research. So what you did. Okay, so you have to explain what you exactly did. Okay, you surveyed so many people, and out of which these many were male, these many were female. So you explain your complete sample. Then what did you do? What type of information you collected? How many questions were there in your questionnaire? What was which set of questions was measuring what? Okay, all of that you explain. Then how you did it? Okay, so how did you go about collecting your sample? All of that detail you have to give. That will give you reliability and validity. It should include the type of research you conducted, how you collected your data, how you analyzed your data, any tools or materials that you used in your research, your rationale for choosing these methods, that why did you choose this method and why not some other method, etc. It should explain your methodological approach, that is your data qualitative or quantitative? Is it primary or secondary? Is it experimental or observational? Are there any ethical or philosophical considerations? Ethical considerations means, suppose you have written the case about a real company. Have they given you permission to write about them? Okay. If you have taken your data from secondary sources, it's okay. But if you have taken your data from, primary sources, like let us say you collected data of students, have you taken them into confidence, told them that this data will be used for this research purpose? You have to give that very transparently. You cannot collect data, giving them half information and then you use it for something else. Okay. Describe the methods of data collection, whether it is quantitative. Quantitative can be done using surveys or experiments. How did you design the questionnaire and what form did the questions take? Were they multiple choice? Were they Likert scale? What sampling method did you use to select the participants? Did you conduct surveys by phone, mail, online, or in person? How long did participants have to respond? What was the sample size and response rate? You have to mention all of this in your research methodology paragraph. Then this will all come in research design, basically. Okay. How did you design the experiment? How did you recruit the participants? How did you manipulate and measure the variables? What tools or technologies did you use? So suppose you want to see that you want to test the impact of soft skill training on interview performance of students. So what will you do? First of all, you will select a group of students. You will divide them into two parts. One will be the your normal group and the other will be your test group or your experimental group. Or through the normal students, you will not impart any training to them. And when the interview process happens, you will allow them to sit in the interviews and you will gauge their performance, how many passed the interview. The second group of students, you are giving them intensive soft skill training, how to shake hand, how to stand, how to sit, how to present, how to debate, etc. And then you, when the interviews come, they sit in interviews and you see their performance. So out of these 15 students, how many got a job? Okay. So if more number of students from the experimental group get jobs, that means that you can measure the impact of your training, right? You can say that, okay, soft skills training of 3 weeks improved the performance by, suppose in the first group, out of 15 students, 1 was selected. Okay. And in the second group, out of 15 students, 5 were selected. Then you can say that performance was improved by 25%. Isn't it? So that is something that you can, this is how you will design your experiment. Now, if you have designed this experiment, you have to explain it in your method. Okay, you have to say, how did you recruit participants? Okay, you'll say we took MBA second semester students or third semester students. How did you measure, manipulate and measure the variables? Okay, so what were you measuring? Their interviewing skills. Okay, performance. Okay, what tools or technologies did you use in the experiment? And so all that you have to mention. If you are working on existing data, so where did you source the material? How was the data originally produced? What criteria did you use to select the material? So let us say if I want to study the impact of a merger announcement on the share price of the company, what will I do? I will take existing data from the Bombay Stock Exchange or the National Stock Exchange of the particular company, and I will work around the data. So this is existing data. I'm not finding anything from primary sources. Okay. So there I have to say, where did I source my material? Okay, I took it from the Bombay Stock Exchange website. How was the data originally produced? Oh, it was produced by the BSE trading system. What criteria did you use to select? So I'll say, okay, I wanted to study merger effect. So I selected 20 days before the merger and 5 days after the merger. What criteria? Okay, so this is how I will describe that particular study. Suppose you use qualitative methods. So in that case, you reflect on the approach. Since all the methods are flexible, you have to define the criteria that you use to select the participants, the context in which the research was conducted, and the role you played in collecting the data, that is active or passive observer. So suppose qualitative methods, suppose I do something like a focused group. Okay, so when do I use a focused group? When the variables are unexplored. I don't know what affects what. So we were doing a study on sharing economy and its adoption in India. Okay, so something like how the Uber model in the US is completely different from that Uber model in India, and why? Or why we in India are very reluctant to give our homes to an Airbnb kind of a platform. Okay, so we were studying on that. So because in India, this sharing economy concept was, even today it is not so highly adopted or does not work on the same business model as the West. We didn't have any ready-made data. Okay, so what we had to do, we had to kind of gather a group of, maybe say millennials. We got them together and we just gave them a kind of a cue that, okay, what do you think? Would you give your house on rent on a sharing economy platform? And they all said, yeah, we would give if, we would not give if. And then we then just noted down all their opinions and, their thought processes, and we wrote them down. Then we did this, replicated this study for another group in another city. We did it in another group in a different age group. And then we combined all of this data that we had collected. And then we got variables that, yes, okay, one of the variables which impacts is trust. Another variable is ownership of property. So because many people say, oh, we would give, but we don't own anything. Okay. The third would be like, if it's a joint family kind of a situation, they say, yeah, we would like to give, but my uncle is not allowing. Those type of variables come out from this kind of a qualitative exploratory study. So then we identify variables, then we form questions, and we ask people that, okay, which are these factors which affect you? And then we say, okay, which is the factor which is the most impactful? And then we say, okay, this impacts this. If we can rectify this, we can improve the adoption of sharing economy in a country like India. Okay, so that is how qualitative methods work. Okay, So interview or focus group, participant observation, existing data again. Evaluate and justify your methodological choices. So why a particular method was more suitable for your study? Why did you not choose, or why did you choose a particular method? Discuss how the approach contributed to new knowledge or understanding. Now, what are the tips for writing a strong method on the objectives and the research questions? Cite relevant sources, write for your audience, don't go into unnecessary detail. Discuss the obstacles that you faced in collecting and analyzing data. Demonstrate that you made the research as rigorous as possible. Okay, so where do you get your data? Units of analysis. Are you analyzing households? Are you analyzing individuals? Are you analyzing companies or organizations? Determine the type of data, whether primary, secondary. What type of data will entail numerical values? Okay. Is your data categorical, continuous, dependent, independent? So you understand what is categorical, continuous. You and see that basically there are three types of data: nominal, ordinal, that is interval, or the third is ratio. Ratio is basically numbers which can be decimals, fractions, which can be divided. Okay, numbers which mean a particular numerical value. Let us say the profit of a company. Okay, so this is ratio data. Ratio data has the most power of explanation. It's always to collect your data in the form of ratio, if possible. So I'll give you an example. If I want to measure the performance of the company, I can say the company has a profit of 10,000 rupees, or I can say the company is profitable or not profitable. Okay. Now, if I say company is profitable or not profitable, that also shows performance. But if I say it has a profit of 10,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees to explain performance is a more powerful tool than just saying profitable or not profitable. Are you getting it? Now, when I say it is profitable or not profitable, that is nominal measurement. So that is a nominal variable. I'm saying either it is, I'm giving it a name, profitable, not profitable. Okay, something like male, female, categorical data. And the second is your interval data, interval or ordinal, which to say you can say 1, 2 is better than 5 is better than 4 is better than 3 is better than 2 is better than 1, but by how much we cannot say. So on a Likert scale, you can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is better than 1, but by how much we do not know. Okay, but we just know that, yeah, going from strongly disagree to strongly agree kind of scales. Okay. Analysis of data, the research methods are experiment, survey, interview, focus group, observation, review of literature, case study. In experiment, you need primary data. In survey, you need primary. Interview, you need primary. Observation, you need primary. Literature review, secondary. Case study can be either primary or secondary. In the first two, you need quantitative. In the third, you need qualitative. In the other three, you can do anything. When do you use experiment? When you want to test the cause and effect relationship. This causes this kind of relationships. When do you use survey? You want to understand general characteristics of a population. Okay. When you use interview or focus group, you want to gain more in-depth understanding of the topic. The topic is new, it is not very well understood or very well investigated. In those, you use focus groups. Observation, to understand how something occurs in a natural setting, you observe, right? Literature review, to situate your research in an existing body of work. अभी तक क्या हो चुका है, आपका research कहाँ पे fit हो रहा है. And case study, to gain an in-depth understanding of a specific group or context, or when you don't have resources for a large study. So you do one case and then you see whether you can generalize that to other similar situations. Okay. Qualitative, quantitative, we have seen. How do you write the discussion? Okay, so in discussion, you write the meaning, importance, and the relevance of your research. It should focus on explaining and evaluating what you found. It should show how it relates to your literature review and research questions, and it should make an argument in support of your overall conclusion. So discussion is important. There are 4 key elements in the discussion. Interpretations, that is, what do your results mean? Implications, why do your results matter? Limitations, what the results cannot tell us. Limitations are not something like, oh, there was a time constraint and there was a money constraint and there was a secondary data or primary data constraint. No, that is not your limitation. Your limitation is X impacts Y, that is for sure. But we don't know that whether X impacts Y in summer is different from winter. We don't know that. Okay, so what your data cannot tell you at the moment is what you have to write in your limitations. And recommendations, what practical actions or scientific studies. Recommendations are not general opinions. Recommendations should follow your findings. Okay, so let us say that somebody says that, oh, in the school, let us say children are asked, are there holistic development facilities? Are there yoga classes or some self-help classes going on in your school or college? And 40% students say yes, and we really enjoy them. The other 40% say, oh, no, there's nothing like that happening. And the remaining 20% say, we don't know what is happening. So then what is the problem here? Can you say, oh, 40% are availing the services, 40% are not happy with the service, with what the school is providing? But you have to understand that suppose there are 20 schools that you are surveying, maybe out of those 20, only 10 are providing extracurricular activities like yoga and gymnastics, etc. Others are not. So your recommendations that more and more schools should adopt, not that students are unaware. Okay, so your recommendations are, so one recommendation to students should be given more awareness of what activities going on. So students know everything. That school is not providing that activity could be the reason. So your recommendation should be of that kind. It should follow from your findings, not some general recommendations. You summarize your key findings, write your overall result in a paragraph format. Do not repeat your findings point by point. We all have this habit of writing in bullet points. Never ever do we do that in a research paper. We try to give examples. We try to cite other studies which have had similar findings, and we say, okay, this guy also found this, and we can say that, okay, our study adds more strength to this particular paper also. Just a second, I need to explain myself. Lectures. Exam. Viva. મારે છે ને 12-13 એપ્રિલ બોમ્બે જવાનું છે એક વર્કશોપ માટે.
તો પછી શું કરીએ? 15 કરી દઈએ.
હા, 15 is fine.
એટલે એવું કરશું કે છે ને 15મીએ આપણે 3 જણને બોલાવવાના છે ને, તો એકને 13 બોલાવી, એકને 15 બોલાવી.
ઓકે.
તમારો
મોકલ્યું મેં.
એચઆર માં કોને બોલાવવા?
અરે ચેક કરો મેલ.
એચઆર માં પેલા તમારે બેનને ક્યારે બોલાવવા છે? 13મી કે 15મી?
બને એટલા મોડા.
15 અઢી કેટલી?
એક્ઝામ ક્યારે કરું છું?
હા, 30-29
30-29 પતે ને 15 દિવસ છે, 15 છે.
હા, 15 is good.
ચાલશે 15 ના.
ના, એટલે ફાઇનાન્સ માં છે ને આ લોકો 4 જણ ખાલી ગાંધી મેડમ નું 15 રાખીશ. એક જણને કમ્પ્લીટ બોલાવી દઈશું. બરાબર છે?
ફાઇલ મેને જ્યારે ફાસ્ટ કરી.
ફાઇલ મેને સેટરડે બોલાવીએ તમને બતાવો.
Yeah, hello, sorry about that. So I think how do you write your findings? These are the examples that the results indicate that the study demonstrates a correlation between this analysis supports the theory that the data suggests that. This is how you begin the the writing part. Then you give your interpretations, that this is the meaning of the results, which might seem obvious to you, but it's important to spell out their significance for the reader. Because you have worked on your paper for so long that you'll say, oh, this is self-explanatory. How much do I need to write? But no, you need to spell out everything that you have found in not only in the form of numbers, which you do in data analysis part, but also an interpretation part, but also in terms of implications, that what do these numbers mean? When I say, oh, there is a high correlation between this and this, what does it mean? Or if I say, yes, there is a regression coefficient of so and so is 0.85. What does it mean? So you have to spell it out properly. Or in layman terms, layman means not complete layman, but ultimately what is coming out of your research should be written very explicitly in your interpretations and findings. Okay, so you identify correlations, patterns, relationships, discuss whether the results met your expectations or supported your hypothesis. You contextualize your findings within previous research and theory. Explain unexpected results and evaluating their significance, considering possible alternative explanations and making an argument for your position. That is why your research makes sense, in short. So you say in line with the hypothesis, if it is matching the hypothesis. Contrary to the hypothesized association, if it is not matching. The results contradict the claims of so and so. The results might suggest that X, however, based on the findings of similar studies, a more plausible explanation is Y. Okay. So your research might find something really absurd. So you have to say that this is what I found. Maybe my data, I need to collect more data, but logic says that this should not be true. Discuss the implications. Make sure to relate your results back to the scholarly work that you surveyed in the literature. The discussion should show how your findings fit with existing knowledge, what new insights they contribute, and what consequences they have for theory or practice, and so on. So your overall aim is to show the reader exactly why your research has contributed, what your research has contributed, and why they should care about your research. Okay, this is very important. Okay, you acknowledge the limitations. What do you leave out of your discussion? Don't introduce new results. You should only discuss the data that you have already reported in the results. Okay, don't make inflated claims. Don't undermine your research. Okay, these three. Checklist for discussion. I have concisely summarized. I have discussed and interpreted. I have cited relevant literature. All these things, whether have you done all of this, then your discussion is complete. I have made relevant recommendations for further research. I have acknowledged and evaluated the limitations. I have stated practical or theoretical implications of my result. If relevant, I have considered alternative explanations to the results, and so on. Okay. How to write? So you have to write in paragraph structures. Do not write bullet points. This is a lot about how to write and how to modify, proofreading, editing, etc. Conclusion is where you wrap up your ideas and leave the reader with a strong final impression. Okay, so it has several key goals. You restate the research problem addressed in the paper. You summarize your overall arguments. You suggest the key takeovers from your paper. The content of the conclusion varies depending on whether your paper presents the results of original empirical results or constructs an argument through engagement with resources. Okay. Now, many times we are talking about what are journals of repute. So journals of repute are those indexed in Scopus, Web of Science. In India, we have UGC CARE listed journals. So for our API scores promotions, even UGC CARE listed journals are okay. But if you aim for Scopus, you will be published in UGC listed. If there are journals of some reputed universities or institutes and certain peer-reviewed journals. What is indexation? This means list. Anyways, we are not going to talk about this too much. Why do we need Scopus? Okay, because Scopus is an abstract and citation indexing database of peer-reviewed literature. There are scientific journals, books, and conference proceedings which are indexed in Scopus. Scopus has a lot of academic rigor. Means if your journal is indexed in Scopus, that means You have worked really hard to have your paper published. You cannot do it otherwise. What is academic rigor? Means there is diversity in geographical location of editors and authors. This is very important. If your authors are from 5 different places in the world, your chances of your paper getting accepted are very high. So if one is sitting in Dubai, another in Oman, another in Pune, another in Surat, and another in USA, by all likelihood, your paper will be accepted. Okay, academic contribution to the field. What is the quality of content and what is the publishing regularity? If good journals will be published regularly. Okay. Why does the list keep on changing? Because journals are re-evaluated every year, and journals not fulfilling the requisite criteria will be removed. Things to keep in mind as an author. As authors, you still need to consider placing your article in journals where the aims and scope mesh with your topic. So suppose you have written about some tribe in Africa and you're sending it to a journal in Australia, it's never going to be accepted. Okay, so you're writing about emerging economies, send in journals of emerging economies. If you're written related to an Indian company, send in an Indian journal or a journal which is ready to accept Asian papers. Okay, sometimes their scope is very limited. They will only accept a certain kind of a paper with a certain kind of a focus. So whenever you select the journal, read the scope and aim of the journal very carefully. If you are in a new field, you may be hard pressed to find a journal indexed with Scopus, as this is a 2-year minimum process. At least 3 published issues are examined in the selection process. Furthermore, a manuscript submissions to Scopus journals tend to be heavy and the publication process highly competitive and sometimes lengthy. There are predatory journals out there, but not all Scopus index journals are predatory. Don't look at all this. Now, when you send your paper, you should always write a covering letter. Okay, that now what should your covering letter include? Very quickly, I'll take you through one example of a covering letter. So can you see this? Can you see my screen?
We can only see the slide of writing a covering letter.
Okay, wait.
You have to share that window.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm writing to submit, you're writing to the editor, okay? And I'm writing to submit my manuscript, so-and-so, title so-and-so, for consideration as an Asian Journal of Management Sciences article. The article is a teaching case and it aims to bring out the finer nuances of what is your article about? Okay, what is it and what will it bring out? What are the important aspects of teaching or theory that will come out of your article? whom will it be useful for, that you have to write. And then you have to say that it has not been published anywhere else, etc., etc. So this is a covering letter that you have to write with every paper that you send. Now, then you have to cite sources from, either you have to cite, every journal will tell you what, but normally for social sciences, we use the APA 7th edition. In your text, there should be citation, and in your references, there should be the whole bibliographic, way in which to write. Okay, now suppose you get, do you want me to show you how to do that? Do the referencing part? I'll show it to you in your paper finally. Okay, replying to editors and so once you have sent your paper and they have reviewed it, and they will also reply to you. Okay, they will say that, okay, now these are the problems with your paper. We are sending it back to you. If you can make these revisions, then we might reconsider your paper for publication. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to write that letter. So when you write, can you see another document here saying rebuttal letter?
Yes.
Yeah, so you have to say that, okay, you have to make the changes based on the revisions that you get, and there will be usually at least 2 reviewers who will review your paper, and you have to reply to them step by step. So first I will say, okay, thank you so much for your review, and the above corrections will make positive changes to the paper, and thank you for your time, etc. Then I will say, okay, suppose I get 10 comments from the first reviewer. To each comment, I will give a response. And I will say which page number it is on. Okay, some journals will ask you to highlight the changes that you have made. And so and so. So this is to the first reviewer. Then I have made the changes to the second reviewer. And then finally I will. Sometimes, this rebuttal letter also has to be blinded. So you cannot write your name or anything on the rebuttal letter. That is also important. Okay. So finally you write the rebuttal letter, and no journal will accept your paper in the first go and tell you, oh, we are delighted to receive your paper and we are publishing it as it is. ऐसा कभी भी नहीं होगा. They will send your paper back 2-3 times. They will tell you to make this revision and that revision, and then finally your revised paper will be accepted. If one journal rejects it, do not lose heart. There are thousands of other journals where you can send your paper. Normally, good journals will take 1 to 1.5 years. So I will tell you, one of my case studies has been accepted in Asian Journal of Management cases, where I got the acceptance 3 months ago. I got the paper was accepted after almost 1.5 years of major and minor revisions being done. After that, editorial revisions were done. After that, I got the acceptance, but still the paper will be published after the March, April, May. So in the June, probably, hopefully in the June issue of the journal. Okay, so do not lose patience, do not lose heart, and just keep on persevering. One tip that I would like to give you is write with 3-4 people. It becomes easy. I learned this lesson very late in my life, but that is why I'm telling you that start writing with 3-4 people from different institutes. Collaborate. That is the key to fast publication. Collaborate. Write with authors who have already published in Scopus. It will make the paper, it will make the process faster. So if you have a fabulous idea, write to them that I have this idea, I'm working on this, I will do this, I will do everything. Do you mind putting your name in my paper? Because many journals will ask you, okay, do you have a Scopus ID? That means you are a published Scopus author. That means, your paper will be of a certain quality, less chances of rejection. So don't just put the name of that person. Make that person do some work that please check. Final draft आप check करके आप भेजोगे. You be the corresponding author. Those type of those kind of agreements you can make with established authors. Not everyone will agree, but some might. What are the tools for manuscript improvement? Always use Grammarly before you send your paper. You use plagiarism softwares, and you can also use manuscript editing services. However, they charge a lot of money, but if you're 5 people together and you can afford it, go for it. It makes the publication process much easier. So I think there is a lot more to say, but I think today I will stop my lecture here. I hope I have done justice to this topic. It's a very, very, it's not something that we can just do it in one session. Normally I do a 3-day workshop on how to publish. So anyway.
Thank you so much, madam. It was really something I believe, and everybody would agree. Nobody wanted the session to end because there was so much to learn from you. Quickly, we would take few questions because I could see some questions in the chat box. I would request Jaideep sir to kindly take up the questions.
Yes, madam.
Yeah.
Madam, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, thank you. So, thank you, ma'am. We'll have some questions from the audience.
Yeah, sure.
So, first question is from Sunil Gadge, sir. Ask that what is research gap in thesis?
Yeah, so research gap is something which has not been, that it's a question which has not been properly answered so far, or not answered in a proper context. So maybe there is some study, there are many studies, but say there is no study which brings out the relationship between a variable X and Y in a direct manner. So there could be studies which talk about variable X, Z, W, and there could be studies which talk about variable Y, P, Q, but nothing which relates variable X and Y. Okay, so that is your gap. So gap can be identified from review of literature. When you are reading lot of papers which are relevant to your topic and you find कि अच्छा ऐसा तो कुछ हुआ ही नहीं. Sometimes the gap can be geographical. So something which has been done, especially in studies like finance and economics, see, there are certain policies which are adopted in the Western countries or the developed countries, but that has not yet been implemented in the developing countries or the emerging markets. You can identify those kind of gaps which are geographical in nature. Some gaps are contextual in nature. That, something which happened in the 2008 crisis, how would it manifest in the recent Hindenburg report crisis in India? Okay, so those type of gaps, comparative gaps. Yeah.
Thank you, madam.
Yes, thank you, madam. Madam, this question is related to a variable. Mr. Manikandan says, if I take real problem, some variables does not construct. In this situation, how can I do empirical papers?
I mean, see, if some variables do not construct, means see, if it's an abstract variable, something like satisfaction or trust, or say something like morality or ethics, or something which is an abstract construct, you need to ask questions which will give semblance, or which will kind of construct that variable. Okay, like suppose I want to ask somebody, are you satisfied with the food in this restaurant? Okay, if I just ask the question, are you satisfied? They will say, most likely they'll say yes, because they don't want to enter into saying no and then answer why you are not satisfied, etc. But suppose I ask them, instead of directly asking them, are you satisfied? I might say, will you come back here again? Let's say, yes, Again, instead of yes, no, I'll say highly likely, likely, neutral, not likely, never. Okay, I'll give a scale. And so if he says never, I know he's not satisfied, isn't it? Are you, suppose he says yes, most likely, then I'll ask him the next question. Do you think you will recommend this restaurant to your friends? He says yes. Again, I know he's satisfied. Okay. Do you think the food quality was good? Or do you think the food quality was, as per your expectation? Again, yes. So I will ask him 5 questions, which will help me to determine whether he was satisfied or not. Okay. So when you have such abstract concepts, they are called constructs. You will need to ask a series of questions to create that construct as a variable. Then you can say that yes, these 5 questions answer satisfaction, or these 5 questions construct the satisfaction variable. I hope I have answered your question. If there's something.
Yes, madam. Thank you.
Yeah.
The next question is from Bahadur Singh.
Hmm.
He asked, is there any difference between universe and population?
Yes, there is a difference between universe and population. I mean, it is just a theoretical, difference. Universe, it could be a larger set. Population could be a subset of the universe. Okay, but population is basically relevant to your study. So let us say if I want to study if I want to study the behavior of Indians as far as the sharing economy platforms are concerned, my population is Indians, not the whole world. Okay. Secondly, I want to study millennials. Then my population is people between the age group of 20 to 30. I don't care about people older than 30, younger than 20. Okay. So that is my population. So population is, I think the rather sensible question, a rather relevant question would be, is there a population difference between population and target population? So we are more interested in target population rather than population. Right.
Madam, one more question from audience. Last question, that is how to select research journal of our interest area, our research area.
So one way to do this is when you do your review of literature, from which journals are you identifying papers to read? That could be your journal where you want to send your paper. Okay. Or you identify some good publications like Sage hai, Springer hai, and then in that you find which journal are there for social sciences, which journals are, go more and more specific. But I would suggest that if you are a new researcher, try to have your paper sent to a journal which is more broader scope. Let us say Journal of Social Sciences, which has a lot of different social science topics, rather than going very specific into Journal of Digital Marketing. Getting it? So when you are a new researcher or a new author, try to have a more journal with a wider scope. Maybe it will have a lower, it might have a lower impact factor. That's okay. As long as it is Scopus Q3 also, it is good enough. So that is how I would tell you.
Yes, thank you, madam. Most of the participants are replying that their tasks are solved very satisfactorily. So now I am here to present a vote of thanks for today's webinar. So in the beginning, I express our deep sense of gratitude to Dr. Janki Mistry madam for delivering informative session on the topic publishing research paper. Dr. Janki madam well explained characteristics of academic research or good research. She rightly pointed duties of academicians. Dr. Janki madam kept audience attentive through various examples and her personal experience about research. She presented her views about plagiarism, which is today's concern, she said that understanding gained through research helps in predicting solutions for future. Madam nicely differentiated terms, proposition and hypothesis. Further, she explained elements of research paper and detailed account of each element. So thank you, madam, for very nice information about research paper. Further, I thank Dr. Pathak, madam, principal of Srimati CHM College, for motivating RDC for organizing this webinar. I acknowledge constant support by Dr. Shashibal Pandey, sir, Vice Principal, Srimati CHM College. I express gratitude towards Management Council of Srimati CHM College for support. I thank Dr. Darshana Patil, madam, Chairperson of RDC, for nice execution of this webinar. Our thanks goes to Dr. Kajal Bhojwani for nice introduction of today's resource person. I extend our thanks to our technical team for smooth online conduct of this webinar. I must acknowledge sincere thanks to all the participants who made this webinar successful. I thank every known and unknown contributor to this webinar. And at the end, I request all the participants to give feedback by clicking on feedback link, which is provided in the chat box. And with the permission of all the dignitaries and research development cell, I will declare that today's webinar is over. Now I hand over to the Kajal madam. Kajal madam, please.
Thank you, Jaideep sir. Thank you, Janki madam. All the participants are very happy with the seminar and with the workshop, and we would really love to hear you again very soon.
Sure.
Meanwhile, madam, in case if you can share the PPT with us,
Yeah.
we would be sharing it with the audience because they were asking for it.
So today, now I'm in a hurry to kind of
No-
leave for
no
the
problem.
airport. I will do it in 2-3 days time, if that's
Sure,
okay with you.
sure,
I
ma'am.
will
Once-
surely share it immediately.
Yes,
in-
once
after I come
we
back.
will share it with the participants.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And there's
ma'am.
one question which was not answered. I saw it in the chat. How do you identify predatory journals? So if one key is, in case the journal tells you we will publish your papers very fast, it's predatory for sure. Mostly. They will take their sweet time. So if they tell you we will publish it in 24 hours, it's predatory most likely. So that is the key. Okay. Thank you, Kajal ma'am, for inviting me. Thank you for all the correspondence that we had to, the changes that we had to make, etc. And I thank CHM College once more. Thank you, the head of RDC, Dr. Darshana Patil ji, the principal, I think Dr. Manju Pathak ji and Sashibal sir. And thank you, Jaideep sir, also for your vote of thanks. Thank you all the participants for being a wonderful audience.
Thank you so much, madam, for being with us.
Bye.
Have a safe journey. Thank you, madam.